I'm going to start through this with all of you this morning, and I really want you to try to focus on several things I'm going to share with you right now. For a number of years, I spent a lot of time working on stress and the relationship to our product. And the thing I want all of you to understand when you see this presentation, that I spent 7 years on the road doing stress workshops, stress presentations in hospitals, clinics, colleges, Purdue University, Drake University, University of South Dakota. I was really into this stress subject. And there's a real reason why, because there's going to be a lot of information in here that you need to think about when you think about your life, longevity, your health is all connected to this particular situation. So supplements offer a key component in the effect to gain control of a growing number of Americans who say they're stressed out. According to the American Psychological Association, World Health Organization, the American Institute of Stress, the major source of stress for many people around finances, today's uncertainty, the economy, personal debt, unemployment. This stress is so prevalent today that between 65 and 90%, now that's a big number, of North Americans have enough stress to result in a stress-related disease. I want you to remember that. Next slide, please. So this is an incredible slide. And when I found this, I absolutely blew me away. Studies show that 98% of all the degenerative diseases is stress related. Now that, people, look at that number, 98% of all the degenerative diseases are stress related. It's the #1 killer. Heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes. Look at all of the diseases today that man is plagued with, that the doctors don't deal with the stress. They put them all on the medication. I worked in a lot of different doctor situations when I was doing my stress workshops. And I couldn't believe that these doctors wouldn't deal with the stress first before they started dumping in the chemicals. But anyway, this presentation has got a lot of meat in it and a lot of things to really understand. Next slide, please. I want you to think about the human body. And I want you to think about the Creator gave you something called the stress reaction. Now, the stress reaction is a fight or flight process that absolutely was essential for human beings when they were first on this earth to protect themselves, to run or to fight. Now, this mechanism that was developed is a mechanism you live with every day. Every single day you live with the fight or the flight process. Any sensor that hits you, you worry, you fret, you stew, you react, you actually hit that button. When you hit that button, you activate 3 stress hormones. And you'll notice right at the bottom of the sheet, the 3 stress hormones that are activated. Now, these stress hormones change your body into a fight or flight process. This is where the damage begins, people. This is what's killing everybody, and nobody knows why all these things are happening to them. So the fight or flight you live with every day. Every time you react to anything, you hit the sensor. When you hit the sensor, there are 3 stress hormones that are dropped. Now, these 3 stress hormones physically change the human body. Increased neurological excitement, increased cardiovascular activity, heart rate, stroke volume, cardiac output, blood pressure go up. Increased metabolic activity. Glucose comes up. You start burning a lot of glucose. Protein metabolism. Your demand for protein goes up by 6 times. And if you don't have a reserve in the body, you start hitting your muscles. This is where muscle loss becomes so prevalent because the body needs the amino acids of the protein just prepare you to run or to fight. You depress your antibodies. You start muscle wasting, fat metabolism, increased sodium retention, increased neurological changes, changes in the saliva, and changes in the GI system. Now you look at that list, people, and I'm telling you, people do this 20 times a day. So 20 times a day, you physically put your body through all these changes. And it is a terrible thing, the results. Next slide, please. So I want you to look at 2 separate slides here. I want you to look at the one on the left. Every time you activate the stress reaction, you shut down everything on the left side. Your liver, your stomach, your pancreas, your intestines, everything is shut down. All of the colon is shut down. Now, why does the body do that? Because it does not need those to run or to fight. So everything, the blood is moved over to the right side. Now on the right side is all of your cardiovascular system starts receiving all the blood coming over. So now you're putting pressure on your adrenals, you're putting pressure on your blood system, your heart, your lungs receive all this, and they start to activate to carry more blood. So your blood's going to thicken. Now, a lot of times people have strokes right at this time because your blood's going to thicken because it's got to carry more oxygen. Now, when your blood thickens and you've got some coronary problems, you could have a stroke really easy right there. And you could have a stroke right down by the heart too, because this is where all of the damage starts taking place. Now, this process, people, was not designed to affect you every day like we live with it today. It was designed for once in a while to protect you, that you could run or to fight, but it wasn't designed like we live with it today, and that's every day you do this 10 or 15 times. You physically destroy your body. Now, what starts happening is things are going to start to show up. You're going to start having stomach problems. You're going to start having colon problems. You're going to start having liver problems. You're going to start having a lot of gut problems. Because think of this, when you shut your stomach down and move the blood away, you age your stomach twice as fast as the body. Now, I've run into kids that were 25 years old, had the stomach of an 80-year-old. Their digestion system was terrible, and they were physically sick because the stress that they were living under was aging their body so fast that all of these signs were showing up. Then you come over on the other side and you take a look at the cardiovascular system, you start having all kinds of coronary problems. You start having high blood pressure. You start having a lot of heart issues. You start having an awful lot of issues on both sides of this. Now you're going to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to look at you. He's not going to sit and deal with your stress. He's not going to sit down and explain all this to you. He's going to start you on some drug that is only going to mask the problem. And you get hooked on that drug, and pretty soon, now I know people, they're on high blood pressure medication their whole life, scared to get off, because now you created a habit. You created something that you got to live with. Now, this is a huge slide, guys. And the thing I want you to realize when you look at it, how many people you know that's got gut problems, stomach problems, liver problems, colon problems, kidney problems. What's going to happen? It's going to start to show up. And I'm going to tell you, it did with me. Before Shackley, I was one of the highest stressed people there ever was. I mean, I could walk on the ceiling. I'd get so stressed. And all of a sudden, I started having stomach problems, colon problems. liver problems, and I didn't know why. But when I got down the road and I got into Shackley, started learning more about nutrition, several cardiologists that I played pickleball with started telling me, Jim, you can't go on with the stress you're putting on your body. He said, I bet you're having a lot of different issues. I said, yeah, I am. My stomach, my colon, it's never been right. It's never been right. He said, well, it's never going to be right because you've got too much stress and you've aged those systems way past your age. People, this is the story of the deterioration of the human body. Next slide, please. Now, the first thing when you have hit that stress button is you're going to need sugar. That's the energy driver. Immediate energy driver is sugar. And if the stress reaction lasts very long, then it's fats. So the first thing that's going to happen is your blood sugar level is going to go up. Then if stress keeps on, you're going to end up with more of the fats in your body. Now, this is why people get addicted to sugar. And sugar addictions are terrible. And I want you to understand something. Our products in Shackley are so important because you don't get a sugar reaction. There is no sugar reaction, no glucose reaction. But today, to get a breakfast, you're going to be eating stuff with sugar in it. Now, the sugar converts, obviously, from carbohydrates to sugar, but then you add some stress to it. So you are bloating the body with sugar. Now, what happens with sugar, it puts you in a whole nother level. You've got to activate the insulin to bring that down. Your body's got to use insulin. The body wasn't designed to use insulin. So every morning, you're getting this blast of sugar from everything you're eating for breakfast. Then number two, you get some stress added in there. Bam, up you go. Now you got a glucose reaction. Now you got to use insulin. You're always going to gain weight using insulin. Insulin causes the body to store fat. Next slide, please. Now, the thing about it today is man is not making food. They're making a chemical experiment. So you've got to realize man has created things that have nothing to do with food. Artificial flavors. Now, I was doing cancer research for a lot of years, and I was down at the University of Nebraska, and they were showing us red dye number 2 and yellow dye number 3 were absolutely lethal in the body. Red dye number 2 is in licorice. They're using, if you buy red licorice, you're going to get red dye number 2. Now, if you start buying cereals, you're going to notice the reason that cereal looks good, they've got these dyes in there, and they're chemically going to affect your body. Now, remember the stress, then remember your body, and remember the two together are dynamite, because this is what we have today. We don't have food, and I'm going to show you the perils of this. Next slide, please. Now, when you take a look at our food today, you don't realize it's all chemicals. Now, 1970, 71, the United States government came out and said there was no difference between a chemical and a natural substance. Wow. The government even got into the stupid game. Well, they, at that time, recognized you could use a chemical vitamin C. It was the same as a natural vitamin C, and you could call it all natural. Food companies in 1970 began to switch over to putting chemicals in everything because the chemicals were supposedly going to be the same as anything natural. But then they overdid it. Then they realized they could get by with it. So then they realized we're just going to put chemicals in everything. Why even make it? We can call it all natural. And we can create food that has nothing to do with food, but it's a dangerous thing when you've got a lot of stress in your life, because these chemicals react with the chemical in your body when you're going into the stress reaction to cause a lot of other reactions. Next slide, please. So when your mother or your wife goes to the grocery store and starts buying food, there's quite an array of stuff. I want you to look at that. A typical housewife goes to the grocery store and she starts spending this. There's a product there called Tombstone's Pizza, which I thought was well named. They've got a product there called Velveeta cheese that isn't even cheese, it's oil and water. There's Oreo cookies that are made strictly out of a chemical. There is a product in there called Oscar Mayer Wieners. They are so embalmed with nitrates, you take them out of the package, let them set for years, they will never spoil. I've got 2 in my office that are well over 10 years old, have never spoiled. A mouse won't eat it, a rat won't eat it, but by golly, you'll eat it. Now, all of that stuff is all chemicals. You can look at it any way you want, it's all chemicals. And we start our kids out with Oreo cookies and Ritz crackers and everything else, and people, you're going to kill them. You're going to kill them. That boy, by the time he's 20 years old, is going to have all kinds of health issues because he's getting a double whammy. He's getting the stress reaction, and he's getting the chemicals that really activate and really change the body. Slide number 2. Next one, please. So this is really one that I find really interesting, and that's the cereals. The machine used for making shaped cereals is called an extractor. The mixture is a blend of processing, creating a sweet, crunchy cereal, destroys much of the nutrient content. Even the chemical vitamins added before the extraction process are damaged. The amino acid lysine, which is critical in nutrition, is ravaged. Now, I want to tell you something. That is a chemical experiment for breakfast. It all converts to sugar. It's nothing but a chemical experiment, and there is no nutritional value. Now, the government lets them get by with telling you this is good for your kids. You're going to enjoy this stuff. It's really got value. But people, you put it in a bowl, it'll never spoil. It's been embalmed. It's the worst credible stuff you could ever eat. But there's dangers in it. And the dangers is those chemicals react in your body. And they react along with the stress reaction hormones in causing a lot more difficulty. The other thing, they convert to sugar, which you start getting tremendous amounts of sugar. So this is terrible. And people today start their children on it, and they use it for life. Next slide, please. Now, sugar doesn't exist in the diet of the West until the 17th century. The argument that sugar is essential food is a lot of nonsense. But here's the danger, people. When you eat sugar, the sugar strips out of your body the chromium, the cobalt, the copper, the magnesium, the manganese, and the zinc, because to digest sugar, you have to have those trace elements. In the processing of white sugar, the trace elements are removed, which are necessary for the digestion of the sugar. To digest sugar now, the body has to rob the necessary nutritional support from the storage cells. Now, I'm going to talk more about these storage cells to you because they are really critical things. But sugar is going to ravage your life. Now, not necessarily you need to realize, but ravaging the chromium and the cobalt and the copper and the magnesium and the manganese and the zinc out of your body is devastating. And it's going to have a lot of effects on your body when you keep stripping this stuff out and the body hasn't got these to use. It's a tragedy that's going on in this country. Next slide, please. Now, I want you to look at this today, guys, and I want you to think about this. That guy's eating a hamburger that's got 79 grams of fat in it, saturated fat in that hamburger. Now, I want you to understand the perils of that meal. Now, nobody's going to tell you this, but number one, I want you to realize when you go under stress, you shut your stomach down. So your stomach is now inactive. You throw that into your stomach and it doesn't get digested. There's no way to digest it. The stomach's shut down. You're under stress. You've just gone into the stress reaction. So all that goes into the stomach. Now you can't digest it. Now it's going to start through your body, in a body that's got 98 degrees in it. It's warm, undigested. Where does it end up? In the colon, undigested. I helped in over 200 autopsies in my years in the clinical labs. We could cut in the colon and find beef that had been there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that was rotten. Couldn't go through the body. The realization of this is we today are killing ourselves. But here's the other peril of that product. Number one, it's full of saturated fat. So when it goes in the body, that fat has to be shipped to the liver for processing. Now, what it can't process out of that saturated fat is called LDL. LDL, the body can't process. So it ends up in your arteries as plaque. We saw arteries that were so plugged that you couldn't move one needle through them, and people had a heart attack and died. Now, why aren't we teaching this to people early in life? Why wouldn't a doctor, when you went in, sit down and say, I got to talk to you about some of this, because this is some really critical issues that and some changes you need to make. You got to understand, you eat a lot of foods you can't digest, but don't eat a lot of stuff that's got really digestion problems. Piece of meat is hard to digest. It takes approximately 20 hours to digest a steak. Now, if you're under stress in that time, you don't digest it. You're going to end up with that in your stomach undigested. And you think that doesn't cause a lot of problems? It really does, people. And this is what's killing so many people, is they're eating food, number one, that's hard to digest, full of a lot of saturated fat. Sometimes they're under stress and they can't digest it at all, and really causing a lot of problems. Next slide, please. Now, I want you to look at these two bodies, and you probably recognize them. That's people that are putting on tummy wall fat. Now, I'm going to tell you what's happening here. You start to put that tummy wall fat on because you're eating too much sugary products that create a lot of reaction for the stress. When you got the stress, I want you to remember you cause a lot of physical changes in the body, but you've got to understand their reaction causes a storage of fat. Now, it starts getting stored first in the lungs, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, before you ever see it on the tummy wall. But once it comes to the tummy wall, 2/3 of the fat has already been stored in the organs. Eventually, the organs become all fat, and they can't function at all. I know at autopsy time, we used to see a heart. There was no muscle left in it. It was strictly a fat. We've looked at the liver, and the liver was so full of fat, it couldn't have processed any bile. You look at the lungs are so full of stuff you can't even breathe. Now that's all with the tummy wall. Now remember, the stress reaction changes the body. Nothing works like you think it's going to work when you have a lot of stress in your life. That's the perils of this whole thing, guys. This is what's happening to all the public. And nobody's telling them about it. Nobody's working with them on this. Next slide, please. Well, now we come into a real story. A story that I think is probably the most compelling story I've ever heard in my whole life. Dr. Shackley, years ago, began to believe protein was the key substance, but it wasn't just any protein. It was protein that could be utilized by the body, digested and assimilated under stress, that the body would be able to process this stuff. But then I want you to understand something else. He started to understand there was 9 live amino acids that made up protein. They're called the building blocks. They are the pieces of the protein that are responsible for the nerve fibers, the muscle fibers, the connective tissue, the muscle tissue, come from one of these 9, have to be there. So he spent his lifetime studying nature and understanding the laws of nature and how this protein was so essentially credited in human health and nutrition. Now he discovered a way, and he discovered the green soybean, and he discovered the soybean contained the most valuable amino acids if the soil provided it to the plant. So he said, you always got to follow the laws of nature. Then he says, you can't mess with the laws of nature. You can't start boiling it and frying it and scalding it and changing it, or you're going to lose all these. And these are critical. Now, I want you to understand something. This product, when you take it in the morning, it's designed to get into the body in 30 to 45 minutes. That's incredibly important, so you don't build up food in your body that's not digested. You don't want to have the piece of meat sitting in there for 4, 5, 6 days turning rotten because you couldn't digest it. This is all digested and assimilated. But here's another key point. Those amino acids are picked up by the storage cells. In your body is a line of storage cells that pick up the amino acids and store them. So if you go into the stress reaction, the body has got access to these, not your muscle. Otherwise, you're going to go in and tear up your muscles because the body's got to have the protein. So the storage cells become a critical issue in this whole thing. Well, when you can release these amino acids, like this product does, get it into the system, these amino acids are available during the day to be used instead of your muscle. Now, I worked with the U.S. Olympic team for 5 years, and we could get those guys recovering and going back into another feat so quick because all this assimilation and readiness and usefulness was there for them. This is a very high quality protein. Next slide, please. Now, I want you to understand we all live by the laws of nature. And the value of life depends upon the quality of the amino acids, and the quality of the amino acids depend upon the plant. The plant has to have the soil. Without the soil, you can't do this. And today we have ravaged our soil. Dr. Shackley said, the soil is where the birthplace of everything starts. You've got to have the soil. So when he started to grow this, he knew he had to grow it on the best soil. He knew he had the right plant. He knew how to extract the plant without destroying those amino acids. And he knew how to put it into a product that would be digest and assimilate in your body in about 45 minutes. People, this is a miracle. This is the best of the best. Now, for all these years, since the company got started, it has lived by the philosophy that nature is the sole supplier. Mother Nature is the sole supplier. And you cannot change Mother Nature. You cannot alter her. You cannot boil her or fry her or scald her. That soil is so incredibly important. So Shackley finds growers that can maintain a quality soil. So when we grow the product and they send the raw materials to Shackley, they got to go through all these tests to make sure the ground was right, the plant received them, we've now got them in the raw materials, and now we can start to make our product. Nobody on earth has done this, people. Nobody. Nobody has ever gone out and taught the importance of protein. Next slide, please. Now, the other thing that that plant does, it puts an enzyme in every cell in the plant, in every cell in your body. Our foods should not be altered by processing, refining, chemicalization, or overcooking. This induces a chemical change in the protein matter, and that enzyme is lost. That enzyme activity is completely destroyed at a temperature of 130 degrees. You must remember that the protein food is dependent upon hydrolysis by that enzyme to yield those amino acids, which in animal metabolisms are required for the life process. Why should you destroy the enzyme? And in the proof of our food, it proves the requirement of that process. Now, that is the story of life, people. That is the story that Shaklee has lived for the 60 years that we've been a company. We live, we believe it, and I just want you to know, we do not say anything. It's all Mother Nature. Mother Nature created it. We're not telling you what it does in your body. We're telling you that Mother Nature planned it this way, and why are you going to feel you can change it? Man has never produced life. So how in the world does he feel that he can have any effect on making products chemically? Next slide, please. So we today have a protein smoothie, we call it. And this smoothie has been my breakfast for well over 40 years. I have it most of the time twice a day. Now, the thing about this smoothie, Shaklee has gone through a lot of pains to kind of adapt it to our taste by using natural flavorings that are very nice, but they do not change the philosophy. The enzyme activity is completely destroyed, like I told you, at 130 degrees. You must remember, the protein food is dependent upon that hydrolysis with that enzyme. The enzyme is absolutely essential for life. Now, why would we make it any other way? Why would you think you could still do anything against that law? I did. Man is here because of a creator. A creator designed it all. Now, why would we think we're smarter than that? People, this is a product I have lived on for 40 some years. I take no medication. I'm 80 years old. I still got the vitality I had years and years ago. I don't take any of this medication and stuff. I don't have muscle loss. I today can go out and do it with the best of them. But I want you to realize this is nature. You cannot live out of this process. This process is the creation. Dr. Shaklee told us years ago, you cannot change nature. She's our sole supplier. Next slide, please. So only the plant can produce protein. I want you to remember that. And by utilizing sunlight and all the nutrients in the soil, the quality of the plant can be no better than the value of the soil. The nutritional value in the plant requires that all necessary supplements have to be done, not chemically added to the soil. The value of the soil has given way to chemicals which affect the health of all human beings. People, it's just the law. It's just the law. Now, if man felt he could dump chemicals in there and grow these plants twice as fast and make more and more money, that's what they've done at the expense of all of us. Next slide, please. So nature and the vital link to life is what Shaklee lives off of. It's our philosophy. We've been in business for 60 years making the same product. If you'd go back 60 years ago and look at our protein, it'd be the same today as we did it then, because you can't improve upon nature. That's just the way it is. So the products never change. They don't have to change them. I'm still selling some of the original products that Dr. Shaklee came out with in 1956. They're as good today as they were in 1956. Next slide, please. So the power of nature is what I really want to talk about. And I want you all to realize this is a story, people. It's a story of life. It's a story of health. It's a story of everything that you and I hold value. If you don't have your health, you got nothing. And if you don't protect your health, you got nothing. Next slide, please. So that is the structure of the amino acid. Dr. Shackley told us vitamin C and all other vitamins are like looking at a fish bowl. There are many fish in the bowl, but which one is most important? You can't take any one out without changing the whole structure. This is why you can't replace nature with synthetics. Man still does not know what is in the bowl, what makes up the amino acid. Think about that. We don't know nothing. We've just tried to get around him and make more money selling you stuff that has no value. Next slide, please. Now, this is really an important slide, and you've got to have sustainability because the raw materials have to stay consistent. And when a raw material goes to Shackley, that product has to have everything in it that the grower gave us last year. If that should change, we lose the grower and he has to spend 5 years to get the ground back, get everything back again. So we'll buy his product. Now we pay a lot for our raw materials because we obviously have to, because in this day and age, it takes a lot of extra expense to do what we do. But when you look at our Shackley products, nature is the sole supplier. Now we just came out with a new skincare line that is a vitamin line for your skin. Now you got to think about putting the vitamin on the skin. Why? Because to get the vitamin through your body's process and get it to skin is difficult. Dr. Shackley always told us the skin needed a lot of vitamin C for the collagen. But he says you can't get it by eating it internally because it never gets there. So he said if we could ever figure out a way to infuse vitamin C into the skin, we could build a skincare line the largest the world's ever known. But people, this is that kind of product. It's designed as nutrition to the skin, and you've never used a product like that. Then the raw materials have gone into our cleaning products that all return to nature in 7 days. And we're the only company that's ever done this. That cleaning line is incredible. I used to sell barrels of Basic H to farmers to put it on their ground and increase their crop, improve the validity of their soil, increase the moisture content. We had a Basic H business that was huge, huge. And then Shackley couldn't keep up with it. But here's a product that you can use in your home, and it's all safe. And no other company today can do that. Our cleaning line all returns to nature in 7 days. It will not harm one human cell of the body. And I tell you, we've got an incredible line. And today it's used in the White House. I have a lot of industrial uses for it. I used to sell as much Basic H as I did protein. We always had a big Basic H business. Next slide, please. So the soy protein today that we use is quite unique. It's a cold extraction process. Now, why do you have to do it that way? Dr. Shackley said, I cannot take anything out of here. But I want you to look up in the right-hand corner. A lot of people have condemned soy protein because they couldn't produce it. And people got sick, and so they kept saying, well, you can't take protein because you're going to get sick. Well, that's because they didn't know how to process it. It took Dr. Shackley years of research to find the way to do this. The Maillard reaction process, whenever you cook a food, you denature it and make it into something different. In order to denature the compounds, like the antithyroid substance, then you begin to rearrange the amino acid substance in the soy, and it becomes toxic. If you don't know how to produce a soy product, it becomes toxic. Shackley worked a lot of time. I've sold this product for the 40-some years I've been in the Shackley business. I've not had one product recall. I've not had one liability. This is a unique product, people, and you will not find it anywhere else in the United States or Europe or anywhere else. I'm going to tell you something. If we ever run into a food crisis, I can live on this, and I can store it. And I tell you, I do. I keep so much back. If there's ever a crisis, I can live on this product. And you think about that. a storage product that you can use every day and store and live on. That is an incredible story. And if we promote this product, the marketability of this is so huge. I do almost $1 million worth of business a month. And the reality of it is, it's because of this product that started my whole Shakti career. And I'll tell you something, people, I've used it every day. My kids all use it. My grandkids use it. My great-grandkids use it. My whole family. And I'm going to tell you something. I've seen results that are so incredible. Next slide, please. Well, I want you to realize again the glucose reaction. You do not want to cause a glucose reaction. Our protein does not cause a glucose reaction. We use a very unique fructose that comes right out of the plant. It's a sweetener, but it doesn't cause a glucose reaction. You can't cause a glucose reaction because then you activate and use insulin. Insulin will drop that blood sugar down, but it causes you to store fat. And people, you don't want that kind of life. Next slide, please. Now, the last product I want to talk about today is one of my favorites. This is our Physique. Now, this is a very unique product. It's not a soy protein product. I don't want to even talk about a soy protein product in this product. They're two separate products. It comes from a milk. Yamanouchi took us to Georgetown University when they were working on creating a product that would actually rebuild muscle tissue, stronger and longer, and they discovered milk. Now, they couldn't find a milk source in the United States that wasn't contaminated or processed. And they couldn't find any kind of cows in the United States that produced a quality milk, but they did find a herd of cows in New Zealand. The highest grade milk that ever has been found. That milk contains milk you've never had before in your life. It contains certain 3 amino acids, valine, leucine, and isoleucine, that mother's milk contains a high quality amount of it. That is the milk that recovers and rebuilds the human body. Those are the 3 amino acids. Now, they're included in the 9 I showed you, but in the amino acids, they are 3 that are responsible for recovery and rebuilding. You got to understand, Shakti went there, and that's where we get this milk product from. It's a very high quality product, and it does some really phenomenal things. We worked with the U.S. Olympic team, and they were drinking this stuff right after they got done doing a floor exercise. They would take it, and they could recover so fast they could be back in the game within an hour and a half and compete again. It caused the recovery process to activate so fast. The muscles come back longer and stronger and more elastic. I've been on this product ever since. Now, muscle rebuilding is a very incredible part. But the next thing that Shakti did that made this product so outstanding is they discovered a chromium called chromium nicotinate. It's a natural chromium. That chromium is essential in opening up the muscle to let this in to the muscle, so the muscle comes back longer and stronger and more elastic. And when they designed this, the chromium nicotinate is we're the only company in the world that I still think uses it. It raised the cost of this product extremely. Shakti wasn't even making any money on it because we had to try to compete. But we kept it going. We've used it. We've had it. Shakti it's not a high producer for them for making money, but everybody else uses chromium picolinate. It's a synthetic chromium. It doesn't work that well in the body, but people today haven't paid a lot of attention, and they just buy product with chromium in it, but that's not the chromium that's going to work. So I want you to realize this is a product one of a kind. It's got capabilities that I have found over the years that are so valuable. Muscle loss from stress. Remember I told you, when you go under stress, your body's demand for protein goes up by 6 times. The body goes to the muscle because your storage cells probably don't have anything in it. Body extracts that from the muscle. You lose muscle mass, lose muscle mass, lose muscle mass. Pretty soon you don't have any strong physical primary muscles anymore, and the deterioration of the body continues, but it shouldn't be that way. Now, I've showed you a program today that I did for 7 years all over the road, all over the United States, and it was my most powerful program. I thank you for taking the time with me. I ran a little long, and I appreciate you taking the time with me to go through this, but it is such an important program. There's so many great things in it, and I do right now thank you very much for being on this with me. Thank you very much.